Okay, so this following story is from the 2025 Holders Revival Writing Contest over at the creepypasta.fandom.com. You guys know that I get a lot of my stories from there, and usually they ask me to narrate one of the winner's stories. So this one came in second, and this is by dgrady237. Congratulations to all the winners. If you guys want to hear the other narrations, I know Nature's Temper did one, and I believe Spirit Voices is doing one on their channel as well. Enjoy.
Jack?
Mom?
Jack, can you hear me?
Her voice pulled and slipped away from him, like the warbling sounds of an old radio.
Jackie?
She whispered. Mom? Stay where you are. I'm coming. Jack tried to shout, but the words came out muffled, crumbling out of his mouth like dry bread. He willed his legs to move faster down the long hallway that stretched before him. A wisp of dark hair rippled in the air at the end of the corridor, and then it was gone.
Jack, hurry. They're coming.
Inches of gray, dripping wallpaper moved past him, marking his slow procession. He approached a dead end and turned left around a corner. Another hallway presented itself, this one lined with doors. He ran, banging his fist on doors that had no doorknobs. No way inside. Mom?
Come home, baby,
she whispered from somewhere in the distance, and he kept going.
Jack?
She was louder now. Mom! He pounded on another door. Jack! He had found the right one. He could hear her voice just on the other side. Mom? He listened.
Come in, Jack. You have the key,
she whispered. Jack looked down at the key in his hand. Thick clotted blood covered it. He stared at it, noting a number engraved into it. Number 11. He placed it into the keyhole that had suddenly appeared where a knob should have been. The doors swung open. As he stepped through, the ceiling stretched up and away from him, and he felt himself scrunch down closer to the floor. He was suddenly toddler-sized, and the bloody key was enormous in his hand. He dropped it and looked around at an empty room. Mom? He felt desperate for her and started to cry.
Jack?
Her voice echoed around the room, but he couldn't see her anymore. Two long, pale legs stepped out of the darkness right in front of him. As Jack's eyes moved upward past purple-veined, knurled knees, lines of blood started streaming down her thighs from underneath her faded nightgown. Jack didn't want to see anymore. He tried to scream, but his mouth could only push out scalding hot air. Stiff fingers dug into his shoulders as they shook him awake. Jack! Jack! Jack's uncle, Lee, shouted at him. Jack opened his eyes and sat up on the couch with a jolt. He was still sobbing and found it difficult to stop. What in the hell is wrong with you? He said. Jack sat up on the couch and put his head in his hands. I'm sorry. Wow. I'm sorry, Uncle Lee. I just had a horrible dream. Jack had just turned 13, but was still small and soft around the edges. His dark hair had grown long and curly over his ears, but was now slicked with sweat. What's going on? Lee's wife, Chrissy, chirped from the stairs. She had run halfway down the steps with her robe on, curlers still attached to half of her blonde head. Nothing. He just had a bad dream is all, Uncle Lee said, walking back into the kitchen. Oh, I hate that, Chrissy said, prancing down the steps to the living room. She sat next to Jack and gave him a big hug. Do you want to talk about it? Chrissy said, arm slung over his shoulder. No, I'm okay. Thanks, though, Jack mumbled. Well, okay, honey. Well, I'm gonna go finish getting ready for work. Lucky you on summer break. You could go back to sleep a little bit if you want, she whispered. No, he cannot, Lee barked from the kitchen. Chrissy, where are my keys? Chrissy smiled at Jack and gave his hair a quick ruffle before going in to help Lee. Jack stared at the TV screen. He had fallen asleep with it on again. A commercial for a new medication was playing, the volume so low he couldn't make out what they were saying. But those commercials were always the same. Adults taking sun-soaked strolls and laughing with big-toothed smiles. The soft words quickly noting all of the deadly side effects that come with said medication. In the last shot, a bride danced with her elderly father at her wedding in slow motion. Words appeared over their heads in pretty purple script that stated, "You should not take Object 11 along with other medications. Consult your doctor if severe side effects occur over an extended period of time." The television winked off, and Jack set the remote down on the coffee table beside him. He needed some air. He fished around between the couch cushions until he found his phone, and then threw on some sneakers. Jack was rolling his bike out of the backyard onto the driveway when he heard the familiar sounds of insanity from the garage next door. A buzzsaw was working through something gnarly, and as it sputtered, the smell of burning hit Jack's nose. He rolled down the driveway, craning his neck to look into the neighbor's garage. It was always overflowing with stuff, so it was hard to see what was going on, but he could see a small figure moving around quickly between the boxes and stacks of newspapers. A homemade sign on the side of the garage wall that said, "That's what they want you to think." The buzzsaw gave a final desperate squeak, and then a piece of wood shot out onto the blacktop near Jack's feet. He jumped back as it settled there. A boy stepped out of the garage. He was 12 and taller and skinnier than Jack. He was wearing an enormous welding helmet, gloves, and a kitchen apron. He pushed the helmet up, and it fell off of his head and clunked onto the ground. "Hey, Seymour," Jack said. "Hey," Seymour said excitedly. "What are you doing over there?" "Hold on." Seymour scrambled back between the boxes of junk. Seymour reappeared wearing an enormous wooden box. An array of different colored wooden planks made up the structure. Random nails stuck out here and there. There was a crude hole where his helmeted head stuck out, but other than that, the rest of his body was ensconced entirely inside of it. Looking down, he could just make out Seymour's legs straddling the wheels of his bike. "You're going to ride your bike with that thing on?" "Yup," Seymour said, already sweating and swaying under the weight of the contraption. "Hit me." "What?" "Try to hit me or throw something at me." Jack hesitated and then grabbed the stray chunk of wood that had almost hit him earlier. He tossed it lightly towards Seymour's box, and it clunked against the side. Seymour smiled. "What's... I mean, it's cool and all, but what is that supposed to be?" "It's armor," he said, red-faced. "Oh, cool," Jack said. "Seymour?" An angry voice yelled from inside the house. "You better get your ass in here." Seymour glanced back and then started frantically pedaling the bike down the driveway past Jack. "Come on, let's go. I want to show you something," Seymour said. "Okay, where are we going?" Jack straddled his bike and started pedaling after Seymour, who wasn't going very fast. "You'll see, just follow me." His bike tipped over, and he fell with a thud onto the pavement. "You go ahead," Seymour said from somewhere inside his great wooden shell. "I'll meet you at the park." "Are you sure?" Jack said. The sound of Seymour's back door slamming open cracked like a gunshot. "Seymour!" his father yelled. "Go ahead. Tell Theo to come too. I'll meet you there. Seymour said, pulling himself out of the contraption. Jack hesitated, but could see the pleading in Seymour's eyes and started pedaling away. Warm summer wind blew through Jack's hair. He was flying down a hill on the way to the park, with no traffic and no people. Theo and her little sister Izzy were already at the park when Jack arrived. "Where's the mad scientist?" Theo shouted, standing up from one of the crooked park benches. It was greened with moss and slouching down towards the overgrown weeds. "He's on his way." "Hey, Izzy," Jack said. Izzy smiled shyly. I know, don't even say it. My mom made me bring her," Theo said. Theo was short for a 12-year-old and slender. Her light brown hair was tied loosely in a messy ponytail, downy puffs of baby hairs framing her soft, round face. She had bright, almost forest green eyes that looked enormous behind her thick glasses. Izzy had a similar face, but with brown eyes and darker brown hair that hung long and loose, halfway down her back. Her bangs were thick and a little crooked. They sat and waited, sharing a soda that Theo had bought on the way. Finally, the hulking shape of Seymour pedaled towards them. "Hello, ladies," Seymour said with a big cheesy smile on his face. "What the hell is that?" Theo said. "He's a turtle," Izzy giggled. Seymour extracted himself from his wooden shell and immediately tipped over sideways, taking the bike with it. Seymour didn't give the wooden husk a second glance, and instead strolled over to the group with his hands in his pockets. He had a cut on his cheekbone, and his eye looked like it was starting to swell up. "Are you okay?" Jack said. "Oh, yeah, I just took a tumble," Seymour said quickly and then turned to Theo. "I found some new information online that I think you'll find pretty interesting about your girl Taylor Swift." "Don't start with your conspiracy theories," she said, rolling her eyes. "They're basic fact, dudes. If you see this new side-by-side I found, you'll get it. It's definitely an impersonator. Her moles are in totally different places." "Seymour," Theo patted his shoulder, "get a life." "Interesting you should say that, mon amour. Please, follow me. I want to show you guys something." Seymour set off into the woods that surrounded the park. They shrugged and followed him. "Do you like turtles?" Izzy asked, looking up at Seymour as they walked. "Well, I would like turtles if turtles were real," Seymour said. Izzy stared up at him, tripping over a root and grasping his arm for support. "I think they're cute," she said, grinning. "Well, you've got a lot to learn, Pipsqueak." Seymour patted her on the head. She grasped his hands with hers and didn't let go. "Are we there yet?" Jack asked. "Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" Izzy chirped, swinging Seymour's arm. "Ta-da!" Seymour said, turning toward them and stepping out of the way. "What is it?" Jack said, looking at the slouchy brown mass of wood behind him. "That's our new home, Jack," he said. He swept a hand towards a crumbling old shack. The wooden planks that remained intact were a brownish brown and shoddily nailed together. "I'm sorry. So what are we supposed to be so excited about, Seymour?" Theo asked. "Well, I'm thinking I could fix it up. It could be like our clubhouse, somewhere we can come and hang out with no parents." Seymour's jolly tone had an edge of desperation. Theo said. She looked at Jack for a final approval, as usual. "This could actually be cool. We could fix it up. I mean, Seymour knows how to build stuff, right?" "He does?" Jack said, raising his eyebrows and watching Seymour hit his head on the top of the doorway, trying to peek inside. "Do not tell Mom," Theo shot at Izzy. "Tell Mom what?" Izzy said, absorbed in mimicking Seymour's every move. Jack and Theo nodded at each other affirmatively to that. A lot of this wood is rotting, Seymour said. If we could find like a dozen pieces of wood to replace it, I could fix it. I mean, it won't be pretty, but it'll stand. Where are we going to find a dozen pieces of wood, Seymour? Theo asked, pushing her glasses up her nose for the 10,000th time.
It's time to come home, Jackie.
Mary Street was not merry at all. It bordered the regional rail train tracks that had long been abandoned by decent society. Just about every house was deserted, except for one or two that college kids rented. Come on, Seymour said, rolling his giant turtle bike over to a house on the corner. It was a monstrous 3-story Victorian. Its tattered remains had once been beautiful, just like the other houses on the street that sat empty and soulless, lost relics from better times. The broken floorboards creaked ominously as they followed Seymour through the first floor of the house. He took them into a small room to the right of the sweeping staircase. I usually take the floorboards from this room, Seymour said. The wood in that room still had a healthy chestnut color, despite all the dust and debris. The pieces came up easily, and even Izzy helped stack a few of them. It was easy work, but the dusty air swirling around them made them all sneezy. Jack, in particular, had an increasingly intense sneezing attack, and his eyes looked watery and red. Just take a break and get some fresh air, Theo said. You're probably allergic. Yeah, I'll be right back, he said, sneezing into his elbow. Jack walked to the front door, trying to be as careful as possible with where he stepped. He stepped into a beam of sunlight coming in from the roof. Jackie. The voice drifted down to him from the second floor. No, he whispered to himself. He squeezed his eyes shut, seeing the flesh of his eyelids pulsing orange and red. He let himself settle for a moment, his fear melting into comfort. He took in the warm safety of the sunlight, the soft flesh covering his eyeballs, and her voice. Her voice. Mother? He said softly, a hot tear sliding down his cheek into his mouth. He opened his eyes and looked at the stairs, determined. Come find me, Jackie. The staircase looked like a hockey player's mouth. It was bent, broken, and missing so many pieces that it was more of a gaping maw than a set of stairs. It was probably grand in its time, but now looked dangerous and hungry. Jack climbed up what little pieces of stairs were left, his hands gripping the thick trunk of railing. He was in a trance and didn't even look down to see where he was stepping. When his foot went through a weak spot, he pulled it out bloody and kept going, his arms scraping and clawing, his face set into a mask of brainless conviction. Let me help you, Jack, his mother's voice said. It was full of the warmth of Sunday morning pancakes. It was a cool, loving hand on your forehead when you were sick. It was understanding and unconditional love. It was coming from a thick metal door at the end of the hallway on the second floor. Jack, the voice sighed. Jack reached the metal door and listened. He could hear something moving around behind it. Mom? He said. He slid his hands over the metal but couldn't find the handle. There was a rectangular slot at the bottom of the door, covered by a metal flap. Jack leaned down and lifted the flap, looking into a dark room. Wide, bloodshot eyes, glistening with tears, appeared. They were just a few inches away from his own eyes, looking at him through the slot. Jack gasped and fell back, scrambling away from the door. My baby boy, it said, choking through tears. The sound of churning metal echoed off of the door, and slowly it opened towards him.
They're coming for you.
Theo and Seymour hauled the last pieces of viable wood to the front porch of the house. The sky was softening and turning pink with dusk. We could balance it on top of my bike armor, and I can roll it, Seymour said. Where's Jack? Theo said, looking around. Jack? Jack! Izzy shouted, running around the perimeter of the house. Can you really build this thing? Theo asked Seymour. Sure, I mean, I need to go home and get my toolbox, but I think I could get it up and standing pretty easily. Well, I think it's going to be great. A place far away from everyone else, just for us, she said. Well, part of my survival plan has always been to have a hideout away from society. Now, if it were up high somewhere, like on a hill or a cliff edge, that would give us more of an advantage. At least we'll be secluded, though. If chaos erupts, we'll have some distance. Seymour? Yeah? Why is everything about survival to you? Who hurt you? She meant it as a joke, but Seymour's brow creased, and she could see a look of pain so powerful that she was utterly at a loss for words. Well, it's good to be prepared, Fiorella. He turned and went back to balancing boards on his bike armor. Seymour, don't call me that. A high-pitched screech cut her off. Theo ran towards the sound. It sounded like Izzy, and it was coming from behind the house. Izzy and Theo collided with one another as Theo ripped around the corner. Seymour was a few seconds behind and came panting up behind them. There's someone in the window, Izzy said, voice catching on every word. Theo felt a weight drop in her stomach. Where? Izzy pointed a small finger up towards the second-floor window of the house. The glass was surprisingly still intact. Seymour squinted up at it as well. There was a figure there looking down at them. It was ghostly white. Theo yelped and Seymour jumped back. The figure behind the glass banged its head against the glass once, cracking it, and they all screamed. A pale white forehead pressed against the cracked glass, and the eyes beneath it were wide with fear. They looked inhumanly large. Murder, it cried. Oh my God, Theo said. It's Jack. Seymour bolted towards the front entrance. He bounced up the stairs, leaping lithely over the holes. He checked 2 rooms before finding Jack laying on the floor of a room without a door. Jack was conscious but unresponsive. Seymour had to shake him out of a fetal position. He was staring at a blank corner of the room, eyes wide and face white. With some effort, Seymour got him to stand up, and he helped him down the steps and out into the front yard. Theo and Izzy ran up and hugged them both as soon as they hit the grass. Are you okay? Is he okay? Theo asked, panicked. I don't know. He was just laying there in the room, Seymour said. Let's go to my place, Theo said, hugging Jack again. Jack just sat there, staring into the trees behind her. Let's all go. My mom's working late and will probably go out after, so we can have the place to ourselves. You could sleep over. Okay, Jack said in a daze, and went to pick up his bike. The others glanced at each other, and then followed suit. They must not be brought together. On the way to Theo's house, they turned into a gas station and propped their bikes up on the side. You guys stay here. Izzy and I will go in to get some snacks. The girls went in, and Jack and Seymour sat on the curb. Jack stared at his shoes and said nothing. Hey, how you feeling, pal? Seymour said, but Jack didn't respond. I mean, you scared me back there. What happened? I don't want to talk about it, Jack said solemnly. Seymour got up and paced. Well, I hope they get enough stuff. I'm starving. Seymour said, scanning the old faded flyers stuck on the corkboard near the bathrooms. Maybe her mom has beer, he continued. You know, just something to take the edge off. Jack snorted and Seymour grinned, happy to make him laugh a little. Your dad won't care if you stay over, Jack said after a minute, but Seymour didn't respond. Hello, Jack said, looking at Seymour's back. He was taking a flyer off the board and staring at it. Seymour. Seymour slowly turned and looked at him. What is this, Jack? What? Seymour walked over and handed the flyer to him. It read, Number 11. Have you seen me? Below that was Jack's school picture from the year before, and beneath that, a phone number. Call 215-995-3047. Is that a picture of you? There are like 20 of them on this board, Seymour said. They're looking for you, Jack. Theo and Izzy's house was 3 blocks away on Stratford Lane. It was a 2-story bedroom ranch home with a squeaky screen door, tan wall-to-wall carpeting, and lots of creamy yellow linoleum. It smelled faintly of cigarettes, but not oppressively so. The 4 of them sat around the coffee table looking at each other. The flyers sat on the table in the middle. The faint sound of popcorn popping came from the kitchen, blending with the low murmur of the old black and white movie that was playing softly in the living room. They looked at each other solemnly for a moment, and then Theo cleared her throat to speak. I mean, it's obviously some kind of joke, right? She said. Yeah, but what does number 11 mean? Jack replied. Maybe their flyers are numbered, you know, like the number of copies, said Theo. Call the number, Seymour replied. Should I? Jack said. Yes, Theo and Izzy exclaimed. Jack pulled out his phone and started dialing the numbers from the bottom of the flyer. Wait, Theo said. Jack stopped. Theo jumped up and ran to the kitchen. They heard the sound of the microwave opening and slamming shut. Jack rolled his eyes as Theo came bouncing back into the room with a big bowl of popcorn. She was already stuffing a handful into her mouth. Okay, yeah, go ahead, she said, her words muffled through the buttery fluff. Jack dialed the numbers and put the call on speakerphone. The phone rang 5 times, but the sound was far away, like he was hearing it from down a hallway and around a corner, in another room. His hands started to shake, and then finally somebody picked up. There was a silence on the other end. Hello? Jack said after a few seconds. Hello? Theo tried, but there was nothing. Jack, is it wanting you to leave a voicemail? Seymour asked. Suddenly, the sound of a woman wailing burst through the phone. They all jumped, cringing away from the ear-splitting noise. Izzy put her hands over her ears. Jackie, the woman's voice whispered. It had a sharp sound, even though it was quiet, like metal grinding. Theo thought of an old rusty swing set. Theo looked at Jack. He shook his head, eyes wide open. Hi. Yes, this is, Jack's friend, Theo. She looked around at the others, stumped on what to say. We want to know what the deal is with the flyer, she blurted. I mean, if it's some kind of joke, we don't get it, and we kind of want to know, like, what's the deal? Theo shrugged and looked around at them again. It's time to come home, Jackie. They're looking for you, and they're getting closer. I can. The woman's voice faded into static. I can. She tried again. I can keep you safe, sweetheart, she said, voice fading in and out. Jack grabbed the phone and hung up. He turned the phone off, his hand shaking, and then crumbled up the flyer. He walked it to the kitchen trash can and threw it out. Whoa, what in the hell was that? Theo asked. Can we just go to bed? Jack said, walking back into the living room. It's like 9 o'clock, Theo said. Can we just go to bed, please? Jack said desperately. His eyes were tearing up. Sure, yeah, no problem, man, Theo said. She got up and went to the closet to get some blankets for them to set up camp in the living room. Theo and Izzy shared a room. She waited until Izzy's breathing sounded deeper, more rhythmic, and then she crept out. Jack was already standing in the dark hallway by her door. Shit, Theo yelped. Shh, sorry, Jack said, and he grabbed her arm. Jack and Theo sat at the front stoop. Her mom's car was still gone. What's going on? Theo asked. I don't know, Jack said, putting both of his hands over his face and rubbing up and down. Theo thought it looked like he was trying to remove some thick layer of something when he scrubbed his face like that. I mean, is it about the flyers? We could bike around tomorrow and take them all down, Theo said. No, I mean, yeah, that is so frickin' weird, but it's not just that. I feel like I'm losing it. Like, for real. And what else? Jack looked at her. She hadn't brought her glasses out and she was squinting at him. Her light brown hair was sticking up all over the place. He relaxed a little. I don't know, I'm having these dreams, he said. About what? My mother, Jack said, starting to tear up. I feel like she's calling to me, like she wants me to find her. But your mom's dead, Jack, Theo said, wincing away from her own words. Yeah, I know that, but I feel her emotions. She's scared and hurting. He gulped down a sob, but he couldn't stop the tears. Theo hugged him. They didn't notice the headlights pulling into the driveway as Theo's mother pulled her car in. Maybe she's like calling to you from the beyond, checking in on you, Theo tried. Jack pulled back, face red and tearful. Do you hear what I'm saying, Theo? He was shouting now. My mom's in pain. She's hurting. I could feel it. I knew you wouldn't believe me. I believe you, a voice said on the steps in front of them. They looked up, startled. Theo's mom, Alice, stood on the cracked cement leading up to the stoop. She had green eyes like Theo's, but her hair was dark, artificial maroon. Her makeup was a little smeared from the heat, but she still looked attractive, just a little worn. She was drunk and having a hard time keeping her balance. I'm sorry, Mama, we'll go inside, Theo said, pulling on Jack's arm. Sit, Alice said, swaying a little. I'm gonna be right back. She stumbled through them and went inside. She emerged a minute later, shoeless, holding a beer in a little glass with a finger of brown liquid in it. She stepped between them, taking a seat in the middle, and handed Jack the glass. Here, Jack, sip this. I'll tell you a story. He sipped it, the bitter liquid searing his throat. He coughed. A moment later, he felt a kernel of warmth radiating out from his stomach, calming him. Your mother, Catherine, was my best friend. She looked out at the street, seeing beyond it to another time. She was the sweetest, most loving girl this world had ever seen. Don't ever let anyone tell you different. She took a few pulls from her beer bottle. Jack and Theo stared at her in awe. They were too afraid to breathe, fearing they would ruin whatever was happening. When she got pregnant with you, she was so happy. She just had graduated, but she felt she was ready to be a mama. But her parents disagreed. She was so excited, though. Jack felt more warmth spread through him, this time from her words. Did you know my father? He asked. No, Alice looked at him. No one knew your father. She wouldn't say who he was. She had some strange ideas after giving birth to you, but we thought it was just that postpartum. But, Jack started. I thought she died in childbirth because of me, he said. Alice started to laugh. She stood up, stumbled, and then threw the beer bottle out onto the street. Shut the fuck up, someone yelled from the house across the street. Why don't you come on over here, Gary, and say that to my face? Mom, Theo pleaded, cowering next to Jack. Jack stood up, suddenly angry. He walked over to Alice and planted himself in front of her. She nearly stumbled over him when she turned around. Whoops, she said and burped. How did she die? Jack said, his anger rising. Alice bent towards him and cupped his chin in one hand. You look so much like her. Tears started to roll down her cheeks, smearing her makeup further. Please, he tried. She let go of his face and straightened up. She didn't, she said. She didn't die. She started stumbling back towards the house. She stopped before the steps and turned back to him. They ruined her. She was saying some crazy-ass shit, but they didn't need to lock her up. Lock her up where? He said, walking towards her. Chestnut Hill Psychiatric Hospital. Go to the front desk and ask the clerk. You know what? I'll write it down for you. She looked down at Theo then and stroked her hair. I'm sorry, baby. She walked up the steps and disappeared into the house. They mustn't find you, for if they all come together, the decimation will be upon us. The first thing Jack needed to do was talk to his aunt and uncle. He rode his bike home the next morning while the others rode over to the shack to start building. Luckily, it was a Saturday, so they would both be home. Hey, Aunt Chrissy? Oh, hey, sugar. How was your sleepover? She said as she was pouring coffee for his uncle as he read the newspaper at the kitchen table. It was good, Jack said. He pulled a chair out and sat down at the table next to his uncle. Did you get any sleep? His uncle asked, folding the paper down and putting it aside. I mean, you look exhausted. Yeah, I'm okay. I wanted to talk to you both about something. Chrissy came back over and sat down, looking serious. Well, we're all ears, right, Lee? Yeah, go ahead. I want to talk about my mom, Jack said. His aunt opened and closed her mouth a few times, but didn't say anything. His uncle looked at him hard. Jack couldn't read the expression, but he seemed about as closed off as someone could be. Finally, his uncle spoke. Well, what is it you want to know? Is she still alive? Jack said. His aunt and uncle looked at each other, and he knew right then that there was truth to what Theo's mom had told him. How could you lie to me? My entire life. He was standing up from the table now, shouting. Now, I don't know what you're talking about, and I won't have you screaming at me in this house, his uncle said, nearly shouting now as well. Chrissy got up from the table and ran upstairs, crying. Right, Jack said. He grabbed his backpack and stormed out of the kitchen toward the front door. He stopped at the table by the door where they kept their keys and looked at his uncle's wallet. He hesitated for a moment and then grabbed it, sprinting out of the house and hopping on his bike. To Jack's surprise, Seymour had gotten the shack to stand upright. It was missing most of its walls, but it was looking more like a project with some hope, rather than the haunted, decrepit pile it once resembled. Jack rolled up, dropped his bike, and started jogging toward them all in one motion. Guys? Jack! Theo exclaimed. How did it go? Seymour and Izzy came over as well, and they stood around Jack, looks of concern and even dread creeping over their faces. I need your help. Let me hold you. She said to ask for the holder? Seymour asked as they boarded the bus. Yeah, the holder of life, Jack said. She was drunk. I don't know what she meant, but she wrote it all down with the name of the hospital. We can walk there from the bus stop. Seymour's eyes went wide. No freaking way. Why? Please don't tell me you've heard about this in some deep dark web chat room or something, Jack said. I did hear about it in some deep dark web chat room, replied Seymour, getting visibly excited. Jack slid to a window seat, and Seymour plopped himself down next to him. Theo and Izzy sat in the row in front. Well, what exactly did she say? Seymour said. Jack got out the piece of paper from his pocket and read, In any city, in any country, go to any institution you can find and ask the clerk at the front desk to speak to the holder of life. Seymour's mouth dropped open, and Jack continued. If they look up at you and down with disgust, leave immediately. If they ignore you, you have a chance. Repeat the words and they will take you down a hallway to a room around a corner. Oh, it's real. Holy shit, it's real, Seymour exclaimed. The other passengers looked at him, annoyed. Shh, can you just, explain it quietly, please, Seymour? Jack replied. Okay, so look. Seymour pulled his phone out and started typing. He handed it over and showed Jack a website with a black background. There was a wall of text in white. Jack zeroed in on one particular passage, and it read, The cursed objects must not come together. If the seekers collect them, they will bring about the end of the world, and no one will be saved from it. It is not a religious reckoning, but rather a complete domination of the blackest evil over our dimension. None shall be saved. Remember this. None shall be saved, not even the seekers themselves. They are possessed, drawn to collect the objects not of their own free will. The holders will do everything in their power to keep the objects safe and separate, but they're not always successful, and seekers are relentless. Do not let them come together. All will fall, and depravity and chaos will corrupt the earth. What the hell is this, Seymour? Jack said. You think this is what Theo's middle-aged mother was talking about? This is like some crazy conspiracy theory stuff. No, I'm telling you, man, people are really into this. There's one guy I talked to online who claims to be a seeker. He said he collected one of the objects, and he has to wait for instructions to take it somewhere. He said he had to go to the hospital and say all the weird stuff that Theo's mom said. They got off at the Chestnut Hill stop and started walking. The neighborhood was a lot nicer and more secluded than theirs. They walked in silence until they saw the bronze sign, Chestnut Hill Psychiatric Hospital. They could see the gray facade of the building at the top of a hill beyond. Swaying weeping willow branches made a soft shh sound as Jack led them up a green hill toward the asylum. The building was a long 2-story rectangle. It had some white trimming around the roof and windows, but was still shockingly austere against the beautiful green landscaping around it. They stood in front of the main entrance's glass doors, where the outline of a front desk could be seen. Jack turned around and looked at his friends. You guys don't have to come in with me, Jack said. Yes, we do, Theo said, grabbing his hand. Izzy grabbed Theo's other hand and looked up at the building nervously. Are you kidding, dude? There's probably so much wild shit going on in there. I'm going. Seymour grabbed Jack's other hand. Izzy eagerly closed the circle to hold Seymour's hand. They looked at each other smiling, and Jack felt his confidence build. They walked in. A young man was sitting at a large white half-circle desk. He was staring at a computer, typing. Can I help you? He said, not looking away from his computer. Yes, Jack started, and he looked around at the others. They nodded encouragingly. I'm here to visit someone. Name? The man said, continuing to type. Catherine Longren? Jack said. The man squinted at the screen, fingers flying over the keyboard. Yeah, I don't see anyone here by that name," he said. "Oh, Jack looked at Theo and Seymour, eyes wide, unsure of what to do. "The holder," Seymour mouthed to him aggressively. "I'm looking for the—" Jack couldn't quite bring himself to say it. He felt ridiculous. "The holder of life?" Seymour shouted. "We want to visit with the holder of life." He tried again in a conspiratorial whisper. The man stopped typing, got up, and walked away through a door behind the desk without even looking at them. "Now why did you say that?" Jack shouted at Seymour. "They're gonna think we're nuts. He's probably calling the friggin' police." "They didn't have her name, so it has to be that. I'm telling you." They talked over each other. "Shut up," Theo whispered, nodding her head towards the desk to get them to look. They stopped and looked. A woman appeared and stood like a statue behind the desk. She was middle-aged and had short white hair in a pixie-cut style. Her dark eyes were small and perceptive. "Hello," she said. "Hi," said Izzy. When the woman looked at her, Izzy shrank back behind Seymour, holding on to his arm. "Jack," the woman said, turning her gaze towards him. "How did you know my name?" Jack asked. "Your request has been approved. I will escort you. Your friends, however, will have to stay here. Only one visitor is allowed at a time." Theo grabbed Jack's hand. "Ma'am, please at least let me go with him," she said. "Unfortunately, there are no exceptions to the rules here." She looked back at Jack. "What would you like to do, Jack? She has waited a long time to see you." Jack's heart started beating against his chest so hard he was sure the others could hear it. He looked at Theo and then released her hand. "I'll go alone," he said. The woman walked out from behind the desk and opened a white windowless door for him to walk through. The others watched in awe as they disappeared behind it.
In any city, in any country, in any mental institution or place where people are kept hidden away from society, ask to see a holder. For if you ask and the clerk finds you a convoy, you will have your chance to gain a new object.
Jack walked behind the woman down a long white hallway. "Jackie?" He could already hear her voice louder in his head now that he was nearer to her. There were other cells lining the hallway, each with a round plexiglass window at the top. The patients in those cells were peering out at him, calling out as he went by. "Mother," one wailed. "They're coming for you," said another from his right. He was an older man, rubbing his bearded face across the plexiglass. Finally, they turned a corner, and there, at the end of the hall, was a metal door. It looked ancient. The one shiny metal was rusted and browned along the edges. It was the same door he had seen in the abandoned house, and Jack knew she was there behind it. The woman took out a circular keyring with a dozen keys hanging from it. "She will be so glad to see you," the woman said, smiling. She opened the door and swept her hand forward to welcome Jack to step inside. The metal doors shut behind him, and he found himself alone in the gloomy room. It was lit only by a stream of gray light coming in from a slit of a window up high on the wall. He looked around the room. As his eyes adjusted, he could make out a small hospital bed in the corner. He walked towards it, and the shape of the woman laying there became clearer. He stopped, trying to swallow what little saliva his mouth was producing. "Hello?" he said. "Hello, Jackie," a voice said, warm as syrup. He walked forward. "Mom?" "Let me see you," she said. He could see her now. She had long, dark hair. Her face was still surprisingly young-looking, but devoid of any healthy color. The whole room, including her, looked gray in varying shades. Despite all of this, her eyes looked kind, and she was smiling. "Oh," she said, breathless. "You're so beautiful. I knew you would be." "Mom?" he said, crying. He went to her and reached for her hand. It was shackled to the side of the bed. He stopped short, his face starting to crumble. "It's okay, darling. I'm all right." She reached her hand out as far as she could to hold his hand, and he knelt beside her. I didn't know," he sobbed. "They told me you were dead." "And that's what I wanted, beautiful boy." "What?" "Well, I wanted you to be happy, to live a normal life for as long as you could. I thought they would stop looking for you eventually." "Huh? Who? What are you talking about? I've been living with Aunt Chrissy and Uncle Lee this whole time, not knowing anything about you. And you were right here." His world was folding in half. He couldn't keep his head straight. "They did the right thing. Do you play sports? Do you have a girlfriend? Do you have nice friends? Oh, I've imagined you playing and riding bikes all these years." What? I don't understand." He looked down and noticed a small blotch of red on the bedsheet over her stomach. "You're hurt," he said. The blotch grew to the size of a fist, a bright licorice red color. It was staining the white sheet. "They're coming for you, Jack. I thought you could be free, but they'll find you, and what they'll do with you, well, it will be the end of everything. For all of us." "What are you talking about?" He was crying hard now, looking at the growing crescent of blood spreading in the shape of a grotesque smile across her abdomen. "Come home, Jackie," she said, pulling the blanket aside. His mother's stomach was splitting in two, wider and wider, blood seeping out onto the bed and dripping to the floor. The pink flaps of her skin stretched impossibly long and reached towards him. "Let me keep you safe," she said. Jack screamed and ran towards the door. He pounded on the metal and screamed for help. He looked back and lost all feelings in his legs. The hole in his mother's stomach was growing larger than the bed itself. He couldn't even see his mother's face anymore, just a maw of red and pink viscera. The skin around it stretched to his feet by the door. The tips looked like deformed hands. They grabbed on to his ankles, flipping him onto the floor. "No!" he screamed, voice tearing up his throat. "Help me!" He tried to grip the floor, but it was all smooth cement. The skin pulled him, sliding him across the floor towards the dark corner where the bed sat, the wound opening like a flower. It pulled him in until he was submerged inside of her up to his knees. His leg bones cracked, breaking in two so that more of his body could be stuffed inside of her uterus. "Mother," he called out, screeching. The patients in the hallway echoed him. "Mother." The last sensation he had was of his neck snapping, as he was entirely crunched into the tiny space. The hole closed around him, getting smaller until just his one unseeing eye peered out. Then, the wound closed itself up completely, sealing him inside. The fetus is Object 11, of 538 objects. They must not be found. They must not come together.